going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power. I've got a couple of interesting stories for you guys today. The first story that I've got for you guys today, we got the latest physique update from Nick Walker, and also what seems to be a rekindling of the Nick Walker and Regan Grimes rivalry. I know that in the past they had traded some shots at each other before, and it looks like that's happening again based on a clip that I just saw from Fuad's podcast where they interviewed Regan about going up against Nick at the New York Pro. But we'll start out with Nick's physique update because it's kind of an interesting comparison between him and Regan because they're weighing like almost exactly the same right now, but obviously Nick and Regan have extremely different structures. So in this update of Nick posted today, he said he's weighing 303 pounds. And all the updates that we've got from Regan over the last week or two, he's been between like 302 and 303. But we'll start with the update from Nick, and it's also important to point out that Nick will be competing a little bit sooner than Regan will because Nick is doing Pittsburgh before he does New York. So he's a little bit further along in his prep here. And I mean, honestly, considering Nick's structure and his frame in general being much shorter than Regan, Nick is 5'6" or 5'7", Regan's about 6 foot, so a pretty decent height difference between the two to weigh the same. And for his height, I think Nick is actually holding 300-plus pounds pretty well here. Because like I said, when we talk about guys like Samson, Andrew Jack, even Regan, that height difference does matter quite a bit when it comes to talking about over 300 pounds, how they hold that much size. So, I mean, for the condition that Nick's holding at 303, I think he looks pretty good in this most muscular specifically. And then yesterday, he posted a front double bicep. He hadn't confirmed his weight in this update yet, but he posted a front double bicep and a back lat spread. I still kind of feel like the waist looks a little bit thicker on Nick with this extra size. But I think, like I said, conditioning-wise for 303, it's not a bad look for Nick. It doesn't look horrible on his frame, but I want to show you. So we'll show you the clip from the Fuad podcast, which is what Regan had to say about Nick. So in the clip, he said, well, number one, he said he's going to beat Nick, which, you know, people were reacting to that kind of crazy. And I mean, obviously any of these guys going into any show, they're going to be confident in how they look. They're going to say they're going to win. I mean, what do you really expect Regan to say? He's not going to beat Nick. He's not going to win the show. Then why is he doing the show? So it's not that surprising to me that he would say this. I think it's surprising to a lot of people because it seems like it's unlikely that Regan would beat Nick based on their past Olympia placings. But I think where it turns a little bit and becomes kind of a shot at Nick is he said you're going to see Nick a week later at the Cali Pro still trying to win and qualify for the Olympia. So I think that's kind of where it turned into a dig at Nick. And then when I look at their recent updates, they are kind of going tit for tat a little bit, both posting the exact same weight. So first, let me just roll the clip, and then I'll show a couple of Regan's more recent updates at the same weight as Nick, side by side with Nick. But here's the clip.
Are you going to beat him in New York?
Yeah.
I also
you'll see Nick at the Cali Pro a week later trying to get his qualification.
So first you had Regan, this was a few days ago, but just for the sake of comparing it to Nick, at 17 weeks out, 303 pounds. And although we didn't get a back double bicep from Nick, we got a back lat spread, so we can put those side by side. And again, for the context, Regan is competing a little bit later than Nick. And this update was 4 days ago compared to Nick's that was just a couple days ago. And I think if we had a back double comparison between Nick and Regan, that would be a little bit more telling because I think Nick has an amazing back double bicep. But just so you can get a little bit of an idea of how each of these guys with their different structures is holding that 300-plus pounds. Then if you go to the most muscular, so for Regan, the last most muscular that we got, this was on January 15th. So this was almost 2 weeks ago. And again, he's competing later than Nick because Nick's doing Pittsburgh. Regan's not competing to New York. So he's a little bit further out than Nick, especially in this update compared to Nick's most muscular today. So I think for comparison's sake, there would be almost a month difference at what point they're at in their preps between Regan and Nick's most muscular. So obviously Nick looks a little bit ahead in terms of conditioning. You can see a little bit more striation in Nick's chest. His abs look a little bit deeper. He's a little bit more vascular, etc. And Regan has a little bit of a rounder, fuller look to him in this update. And I think that this is kind of the key part of the conversation with Regan, where so many people talk about the potential that Regan has, it is because of his structure. He's got a very aesthetic structure. He's able to carry size very well, being a taller guy. He's got great lines. But that's been the conversation for a while, and I think that's the argument that people are applying to this is why he could beat Nick, because his structure is better. But at the same time, I think the argument against Regan is that he's looked small when he's actually on stage within the lineup, and I think that's kind of the disadvantage also of Regan's structure. Being a taller guy, it takes more time. It's harder to fully fill out that frame and not look narrow on stage because he is taller. So personally, when I look at these comparisons, all the differences granted, I think that Nick looks more impressive at 300 plus pounds. And I think on stage, he's going to look a lot bigger than Regan at whatever weight. I mean, obviously, neither of these guys are going to be 300 pounds on stage. And Regan being further out at the same weight as Nick, he's probably, even though he's taller, I feel like he's probably still going to end up weighing less on stage than Nick is. And I mean, we'll see what happens. Who's to say that if Nick somehow manages to win the Pittsburgh Pro first, who's to say he might not just shut it down right there and just focus on the Olympia and not do any other shows? Because I think realistically, the Pittsburgh is Nick's biggest challenge, facing Martin again. I think that's a much more serious threat to Nick than Regan. But I do like the competitiveness here because they are both young guys. They're weighing about the same. I don't really think they're at the same level yet. And I really don't think that Nick has fallen off that hard to where people are saying, well, now Regan's better than him. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Nick versus Regan. Do you think Regan has a chance at beating Nick Walker? I mean, I don't think it's like completely unrealistic. Certainly not impossible, but just unlikely. Now, next up in the news, this is one that I was really excited to talk about. So Patrick Torr, who's coaching Carlos Thomas Jr., a guy that we've talked about a lot going into this year's Arnold Classic, he finally posted a recent update of Carlos Thomas Jr.'s back. And he had the caption on here, "Are there many backs out there carrying more dense muscle, just asking for a friend?" Something to think about, something to talk about. So it's kind of it's very close up of his back. You can't see it's a weird angle. You can't see his lower body, but still, it's a good update of his back. And the reason why I think a lot of people, including myself, were looking forward to seeing this is because that was one of the biggest points of criticism, especially at his pro debut. So I wanted to put up, this is a still shot from Carlos at the Texas Pro, where he made his pro debut, and this is really where the conversation about he needs to bring up his back, add more thickness and density, especially to the mid to lower lats. This is where that conversation really started to take off. So even though this is a very close-up image of his back, you can't see the lower body, you can't see the hamstrings, you can't see the glutes. I think in this update, you can see clear progress in Carlos Thomas Jr.'s back development, especially compared to his pro debut at the Texas Pro. And of course, you've got to take any update like this with a little bit of a grain of salt because obviously Carlos is in a posing room here, so the lighting is fantastic, much different than stage lighting. But I think it's pretty clear from his pro debut to this picture, he's definitely added some thickness, some density to his back. And I think it really does show in this update that he has brought his back up. He just hasn't showed it much this prep. But I think undeniably, he has added thickness to his back. And in this specific update, his back looks good. Now, again, the other thing we're still focusing on is, will he be in shape? If you play this full video from the Texas Pro, I mean, you can still see all the freaky elements that we're talking about now with Carlos Thomas Jr. The guy has a fantastic physique, and that physique, with the improvements that people have been talking about, I think will be very dangerous at the Arnold Classic. I mean, even for a pro debut, and he didn't win this show, this is a very impressive physique, and it's been, almost 2 years, I guess now, right? Maybe more like a year and a half since the pro debut. So this physique plus a year and a half of improvements plus tighter conditioning, I think will be very dangerous. So I cannot wait to see what Carlos Thomas Jr. looks like on the Arnold Classic stage and how much better he looks than this first version of his physique that we saw as a pro. Now, the final story that I've got for you guys today, the latest physique update from Ruff Diesel, Terrence Ruffin, as he prepares for his comeback at the Pittsburgh Pro. And it certainly does look like a new version of Terrence's physique. I mean, it's undeniable that he's bigger here, and he looks like a much fuller version of himself from what we were used to seeing in the past. And I can't wait to see the question finally be answered if Terrence is still in that conversation as potentially being one of these heirs to the throne. Mike Sommerfeld, Ramon Dino, Urs Kausinski, Wesley Vissers, who's going to fill the shoes of Chris Bumstead. Terrence, to me, looks really impressive in these updates. Obviously, he's still not in crazy peeled shape. We still have a ways to go before Pittsburgh. But I think we're going to have a really entertaining overall show at the Pittsburgh Pro. We're going to get to see the Nick and Martin rematch, and then having the return of Terrence Ruffin in the classic physique portion of that show, I think is just going to be awesome. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's going to wrap it up for the video today, guys. I hope you did, in fact, enjoy it. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon, all that good stuff. And as always, I love you guys, appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power, signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NickStrengthPower. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.